What is going on, everybody? Pete Simonetti here for NYY News. Before we jump into the interview, I just want to once again say thank you to Glendon Rusch for joining me to discuss the Jim Cott comments on the Kevin Kernan article written from my good friends over at Ball9. If you guys are not following Ball9, go out there and make sure you do it on Twitter and then check the articles. Kevin Kernan has been tremendous for many, many years, but I retweeted what Jim Cott said regarding the article, talking about how baseball now, you got guys coming out of the dugout to talk to pitchers who really don't have the experience that the pitcher has, and things that, we talk about as fans when it comes to analytics and things like that. So Glendon commented on it, and I said, let me reach out and let's get some of these guys to maybe have a conversation about this. And Glendon was the first one to respond back. I did make an error in the conversation with them. Bobby Jones is who gave up the leadoff home run to Derek Jeter, the game 4 leadoff home run. I actually said it was Glendon. So Glendon, I apologize. He could have been an ass about it. He was not. He was very nice. So that's my bad. But obviously it was on. A lot of you will remember Glendon from the 2000 Subway Series when he was with the New York Mets. But it was just a terrific interview. So without further ado, I want you guys to go ahead and enjoy this interview, myself and 12-year Major League Baseball veteran, Glendon Rusch. Check it out, guys. Hey, everybody. What is going on? Pete Simonetti here for NYY News. I am here with 12-year veteran of Major League Baseball, Glendon Rusch. Glendon, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great, man. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a topic that a lot of fans are very interested in. We have analytics running wild, man, and it's got its ups and its downs, right? I mean, there's definitely something to it, but then it also feels like we're kind of losing that feel for baseball. Is that kind of where your mindset is on it?
Yeah, it's definitely, I think we're lacking a little bit of the feel, right? The eye test, managers seeing how a guy's performing and dictating, hey, I'm going to send him out there for the 6th or his 3rd time through the lineup. And some of the scripted stuff, I think, cuts in on the flow of the game. And a lot of times the way the game's being played and what you're seeing as a pitching coach, as a manager, bench coach, whatever, is going to dictate how you let these things play out later in the game. And if it's scripted ahead of time, absolutely not. My guy's not facing their lineup the 3rd time through. Then, sometimes there's things that come up that you go, well, let's let him go three times through the lineup. So yeah, it's definitely changing.
Right. Definitely. I want to ask you this. So NYY News is obviously regarding the New York Yankees, and it's we're doing very, very well right now. We're moving on up. And one of the strangest comments that I have to get your opinion. You're a Major League ball player. I got to ask you about this. Aaron Boone once said, the manager of the New York Yankees, that players do not he doesn't believe in a player being hot or cold. There got to be something to that.
That's a tough one. I think guys with this length of a season, 162 games, everyone goes up and down. If you want to describe it as hot and cold, great. The way he feels about it, I don't know the context to how he was talking or who he was talking about.
Right.
But everyone goes through their ups and downs throughout a 162 game season. Now, the one thing that I would say is that veteran guys with experience have a tendency to work their way through those trials and tribulations better than younger players do at times.
Right. Awesome. I had to get that because I heard that and I was like, that just sounds so odd to me that you wouldn't believe it, because we see guys obviously go on these hot streaks, Giancarlo Stanton being one who becomes a monster out of nowhere. And, he'll make up his season in a couple of weeks with homer wise. So he's been able to do that before. But let's jump right into, as I don't know when my camera keeps cutting out, but let's jump right into the Jim Cott comments. So as you guys at home are watching this, you're going to see it pop on the screen now, but I want to read it so everybody gets an understanding of what we're talking about. And then Glendon, I'm going to ask for your just honest opinion based off everything Jim Cott said. So here it goes. This was written by Kevin Kernan over at Ball9, my good friends. He said, great article, Kevin. Notice that no manager has been fired this year. They'd have to also fire the scientists that are dictating policy in many cases. I've never seen so many trips to the mound by people who have never had to face a hitter in a pressure situation in Major League Baseball and yet feel compelled to give advice to those who have done it and are doing it. They don't do it to hitters, free throw shooters, golfers, but they feel compelled to do it to pitchers who, even at a young age, have more experience and knowledge of pitching competitively under pressure than the ones giving advice. Please, Mr. Commissioner, ban trips to the mound. Signal a new pitcher in from the dugout, save time, and free up a pitcher's mind. I speak from experience. As a scientist, I received a 25-year grant appearing in almost 900 MLB games, studying the prevention of the home run ball. I found out a lot of do's and don'ts. Signed, Kitty. I love that. I love the way he said it. It's perfect to me. Glendon, please take it away. Let me hear your thoughts on that.
I love his sentiment of what he's talking about. I love that goes back to kind of what we talked about earlier a little bit, the flow of the game, the eye tests, how guys are doing. The one thing I would push back on is that I do think trips to the mound can make a difference. If your pitching coach comes out and he's helping you out through even giving you a break, giving you a report on a guy that you're about to face coming off the bench in a big situation, those types of things do matter. But his overall theme, I get, because he's saying, look, if any of these managers this year that are not doing the job that they should be doing get fired, it's because most of it's coming from up top, right? And so I think he makes a really good point there. And it was interesting to see how that kind of flowed around on Twitter, and people started commenting on it, and some people agreed, some people disagreed, just like anything else on Twitter. But I really get where he's coming from and how he feels about the game, and that a lot of people want to see the game go back a little bit to more of that natural game and things that we remembered from 10 and 20 and 30 years ago. And it can do that without having to take away the advancements that we have, the technology, the scouting reports, everything else that goes along with it. But I think it's got to be a good combination of both.
Yeah, and I like the age group that I'm in now. It's pretty awesome because, right, I remember the dynasty Yankee teams, obviously, but then I remember now how we've really changed. How back when in 2000, for an example, you were teammates with Al Leiter. Al Leiter would throw till his arm fell off. That was never an issue. I mean, Al could do it. He could do it, and I don't think anybody looked at Al and said, oh, well, this is dangerous on him, or this is something that maybe we need to start considering. I mean, yourself, what is the most pitches you've thrown in the game?
I'm sure I was up in the 120-ish range at some point. But yeah, there's times where you go out there and your team's leading 7-1, and you have a chance to give them 2 more innings, save 2 more arms out of the bullpen, which helps you down the road. And and that leads me on to the subject. One of my biggest pet peeves that we see now is teams are mismanaging bullpens, wearing out bullpens into June and July. And when it really matters, when you need to count on those guys for the playoff run, is August and September, and have them dialed in the playoffs. And I think I read somebody's quote about how Bruce Bochy used to manage his bullpen, back in San Diego and San Fran. And those guys all said, I was used in July, August, and September the way I was going to be used in the playoffs, and I got a proper amount of rest, and I was in the roles that I was going to be in. And those things do matter. Roles matter. Not abusing your setup guy, your 7th inning, 8th inning guy, not trying to get your closer to have multiple inning saves all the time. That stuff wears on guys over the years, or over a year. And then just bringing up fresh arms doesn't necessarily help the bullpen. It takes away the cohesiveness of the pen. Those 7 or 8 guys down there, if they're healthy, they want to work together. They want to pitch in the roles that they're out there to pitch in.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm right there. God, I love that mindset is still out there. I mean, obviously you've been there and you've done that, so you could talk and walk it. Just as a fan of the outside looking in, when I watch these games, and sometimes I go a little crazy on here because it drives me mad when you'll have a starter cruising along, he gets past the 50s at 82 pitches, and all of a sudden you see the pennant, and you're like, what are we doing? What's the point of that? I don't get it. And it's something that, obviously the majority of games I'm watching are Yankee games, but at night I put on the West Coast games and I watch those. But for the Yankees personally, we've seen that a lot this year. We've seen the constant changing of bullpen arms. We've seen the best relievers we have go down with arm injuries because they're being overutilized. It's obvious of what's happening here. And across the board, though, in the game, you're seeing starters who are not going long anymore. And my question to you is this something that starters have bought into, that they're very okay with this, or they kind of just, I don't have a choice? I mean, I can't fight my way to be, your veterans sometimes could. We've seen Garrett Cole recently. Boone came to the mound. He's like, no, get away. Like, I'm finishing this. And he was allowed to, but I don't think a younger guy coming up has any say to do something like that.
I think most guys, if you ask them, and they would prefer to go deeper in the games. I know personally, sometimes the third time through the order is when I felt my best. I would really get on a roll, get in a good rhythm, and be feeling good in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning of a game. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. There's 6-inning outings that are an absolute, chore to get through. And then there's a game where you get through 6 and you cruise. So there's big differences, but I know the starters probably would love to go deeper in games. And at the end of the day, it's going to help your bullpen towards the end of the year. Now, if your team is going to lose 100 games, then does it really matter? Maybe not. But I look at some of these playoff contending teams down the stretch this year, and a lot of it had to do with how their bullpen performed and the lack of innings out of their starters that hurt them down the stretch.
Right. So very recently, about a couple of weeks ago, I spoke with Ozzie Guillen Jr., so the son of Ozzie Guillen, and Ozzie's been out of baseball for a while. And I asked him, I said, is there ever a chance your father would get back into managing? He goes, oh, he would do it tomorrow, but nobody will hire him. And I asked him why. He said, because that mindset is gone. They won't tolerate that no more. That is gone from baseball. They don't want a guy who, is going to be involved in what the GM is asking or pushback on certain things. And, you go to the media after the game and you got to have a certain script, so to say, of what you're saying, how you're handling players, how guys are treated in the clubhouse. So, I'm going to bring up a lot about 2000 because that's where even the younger Yankee fans will recognize who you are just because of the Subway Series. Bobby Valentine has always been a guy I love listening to. I like hearing him talk. Guys like in that mold of Bobby Valentine's, Tony La Russa, who's managing today and doing a damn good job, it looks like, in Chicago. Ozzie Guillen, Tony Pena, these guys who you no longer really see in baseball. Do you think there's any hope that these guys even have a shot of getting back in the game anymore?
Well, I think you're going to see one or two of them resurface.
Oh, wow.
Whether it's a Buck Showalter, a Bruce Bochy, right? Yeah. I think you're going to see these guys back in the game, especially after what you've seen this year, coming off the shortened season last year. Right. And then all of a sudden you have Dusty Baker in Houston. Yeah. You have Tony La Russa in Chicago, right? Both winning the division. Look, there's a time and a place, and it all has to be blended together with how the front office and the on-field coaching staff work together. But there's also something to having that veteran presence and the guy who's been there and done that. Dusty's now done it for 5 different teams, right? Yeah, he's won the division.
First time ever.
And I had Dusty and I love him. And man, I was so happy to see that. But I think you're going to see more of that coming.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. I really do, because, I don't know if you've kept up too much on the situation with the Yankees and their really roller coaster season. And I asked Ozzie Guillen Jr. about it because he actually is pretty close with, he knows Aaron Boone up to a degree. And one of the things I mentioned often, I said, it's just weird because Boone comes from a great family. I mean, the Boone family has been around in baseball for ages. You would think they really know what they're doing. But then you see some of the moves and you see the comments after a game and you're like, this can't be his true opinion of things or just the way the game is being presented. It really almost feels like, I hate saying it, is that you're watching a puppet up there and the ownership is pulling the strings and saying, well, this is what you got to do. This is the move to make. It's just odd. You see guys in September now, the Yankees are in a playoff hunt, and you see players that pitched on 4 different teams in a tight game, in a tie game, in the 8th inning of a game in September when you're fighting for a wild card spot. And it just baffles our mind. I'm like, what's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. Like, why are these certain moves being made? And I know there's rest, and we don't know what happens behind the scenes. Guys may not be feeling it that day. They may not be pitching at all. But there just seems like overall in baseball now that the front office has too much of a say of what happens on the field.
I think that's a common theme. Without being inside the Yankees clubhouse, I can tell you this. I know Aaron Boone pretty well from across the other side of the field. And I know Phil Nevin very well, third base coach. Those are baseball guys, and those guys are making decisions that are all about winning and trying to help that team win. So I'd be really surprised if some of those moves that are made or anything that are controversial are actually coming from them. That would be my gut feeling. Right. I would take those guys managing. Aaron's dad, Bob, was my first manager ever in the big leagues. So
wow.
When I came to the big leagues at 22, Bob Boone was my first manager, and he was awesome. Loved playing for him. What a great family, with Aaron and Brett and their other brother, Matt, too, was a really good player. But I have to think that with their experience, with Aaron's experience and what he's done, and now how much he's managed, that he's making the right moves that he can. And if somebody else is telling him what to do, I'm sure it's driving him crazy.
Glendon, when has this started? When did this really become a new trend in baseball where you have, as Jim Cott says, the scientists? I'm assuming what a lot of us call it. We say the nerds in a sense of not knocking a nerd, but kind of saying that it's more people by the book, so to say. The analytical guys, the numbers guys are kind of in the dugout. We see, again, a good example of kind of what Jim Cott is talking about is the Yankees pitching coach never played in the major leagues. He was a coach for a college team. He comes over, he has all these, cameras and different things that they feel they could pick up on pitchers and analytical numbers. And that's kind of what Jim is talking about. For you, for an example, if your pitching coach were to come out and talk to you and you knew this guy had nowhere near the experience that you have as a major league pitcher, how would that go along in a clubhouse?
Well, I think you have to be open-minded to understanding that there are a lot of guys involved in the game now that may not have the playing experience. Having the playing experience doesn't necessarily translate to being a good coach, because there's lots of good coaches that didn't play in the big leagues, maybe didn't even play in the minor leagues, but they're good at communicating. They're good at helping you through certain situations. So it's you're going to see all across the board now, right? We're going to see guys that coached in junior college that are coaching in the big leagues. You're going to see guys that played in the big leagues for 20 years coaching in the big leagues. So as a player, I think you have to be open-minded and understand that hopefully they're there to help you, and you have to respect them and gain their trust. And it's their job to gain your trust as a player, right? So that definitely. You understand their message, what they're trying to do, and that they have your back. I think that's a huge part of it. And I can tell you this, if they're getting a message from up top that's telling them something from an analytics standpoint or anything else, and they don't feel like the coaching staff or the coach they're working with has their back, then that creates a huge divide, and it happens quick. If you don't think your manager or your pitching coach has your back when he talks about you to the front office or anybody else in the organization, then that's a huge red flag. And the staffs that are the best have a really, really good relationship with their players, and they have the respect of all their players.
Right, definitely. So I got two questions left for you. The first one, I actually want to talk about a little about this postseason headed forward. Do you have a favorite right now in this race that you think will go all the way, or do you even have a prediction for the World Series?
Well, it's hard to veer off of the Dodgers being in the World Series again with the experience, with the pitching. They have a lot of firepower in their lineup and a lot of clutch firepower in their lineup. And I had one of my longtime buddies that I had as a pitching coach describes it best when he talks about clutch. He said those guys aren't really necessarily clutch. They just do the same thing they always do in big situations. And those Dodgers guys do that. So I think from an NL standpoint, I think I would look to them. The AL is completely up in the air for me. I don't really know who's it's gonna be who's hot and who gets in. And who knows? Watch out for the Cardinals, man. They can't lose.
Yeah, that's right. No, the Cardinals are special. Speaking of the Dodgers real quickly, I had a friend of mine the other day. tell me that Dave Roberts is by far one of the best managers at blending what we've been talking about today when it comes to analytics and then also when it comes to just the C&I test, that he has a really good mindset for both of those. Do you have any familiarity with Dave Roberts?
I do. I spent some time when I was coaching in the minor leagues with the Padres. He was still over there with us as a first base coach and then a bench coach. Got to be around him a bunch. Love him. I think he's awesome. And I think you can tell that he's got the respect of his players, that those guys know that he has their best interest at heart. Pitching coach is awesome. Mark Pryor was a longtime friend of mine, and I worked for him with the Padres. So I think their staff is well regarded, and you can tell the way they perform. I'm sure if you asked Scherzer and Turner, when they got traded over there, what kind of environment they walked into, I bet they would say it was pretty good.
Yeah, man. Speaking of Mark Pryor, what a career that would have been if he stayed healthy. Man, oh man.
Yeah, he was fun to watch.
He was definitely fun to watch. So the last one I got for you, 2000 World Series. Yankee fans obviously have their memories. Obviously the leadoff home run Jeter had off you. What game was that again? That was game.
He hit a leadoff homer in game 4 against Bobby Jones.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that was game 4. I should be, man, it's too many years gone by.
Well, what I wanted to ask you is, what is your memory of that? What is your fondest memory of going to the World Series in 2000?
Well, that whole October in New York was incredible. Starting from getting in as the wild card and then, playing 2 really good series against 2 really good teams,
right.
Giants and the Cardinals, and just getting into the World Series. And then the city was crazy. It was electric. Yeah. Having, just being there for the Subway Series during the regular season, seeing Mets Yankees for me was incredible at the time. And then to be in the World Series against those guys and coming off, back-to-back World Series championships that they were, and they just won 3 out of 4.
Yep.
I mean, that team, that lineup was really, really good. And I felt like we were every bit as good as they were. I tell people all the time that they really beat us with Stanton, Nelson, and Mariano. Those 3 guys were just on complete lockdown during that series. We lost 4 games by a total of 5 runs, I think.
Ball off the bat from Mike Piazza off Mo. Did you immediately think home run? Like we all thought it was a home run.
I thought it had a chance. Man, what a battle. That game was like you were talking about earlier, Al Leiter, how many pitches he would throw. He was still out there. And we had a great crew and we just got to spend a bunch of time together. A bunch of the guys that were holdovers to the 2001 team, we were all back there for the opening ceremonies of the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 game. So it was great to catch up with those guys and a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, Glendon, man, I greatly appreciate you coming on and joining me today to talk about the analytic, the science part of baseball, what's going on now. Great insight. It's always an honor to talk to somebody who's actually done it. So I thank you again for coming on and joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you. Wow. Again, I just want to say thank you to Glendon Rusch. Hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. We will definitely look to continue this conversation more as Major League Baseball is in a spot where I guess we kind of don't know where it's going to go, right? We know analytics is a big part, but we also, as Glendon said, we got managers who are really blending the 2 well. The old school and the new school. Tony La Russa is one of those guys we also mention often, and he believes some of those guys will come back. We may see some of those names, the Bruce Bochy's out there and guys of that nature, make a return to baseball, which would be absolutely awesome. I think every fan across the board would like that in blending those 2 things together, because I think there is something to the C&I test, and I also believe there's something to the numbers, but I don't think one should really outweigh the other. It takes a perfect blend. So guys, thank you so much for watching that interview. Hope you all enjoyed it. For NYY News, I am Pete Simonetti. Thank you guys. Talk to you soon.